right, so we're trying out this, getting started with doing a YouTube discussion here. This is going to be my first one that I've ever done. And I know, David, you said that you were trying to get into this too, so we're both on our maiden voyage.
Yep, this will be interesting.
We'll see how this goes. We don't know each other really at all. We're both just kind of like had a little small talk before this started. But we met each other virtually on Facebook in a discussion. Was it in the Jordan Peterson Christian?
I believe so, yes.
Jordan Peterson Christian Study Group. Yeah, I'm part of a lot of Jordan Peterson groups. I'm like weird like that.
I'm part of a lot of groups, just period. But yeah, it was the Jordan Peterson Christian Study Group.
Good, cool. And yeah, we got into a little discussion. I can't remember what it was originally on, but it ended up getting into the Great Commission. And I think it was something like, because I mentioned that I am not like a proponent of evangelism per se anymore. And then you brought up the thing about the Great Commission. And before we get into that, I guess like this is customary for YouTube is, why don't you give a little bit of background of yourself and all that type of thing. And so I guess our audiences will know or whatever.
Okay. Well, yeah. So I'm David Wolcott. I'm an amateur Christian apologist. I've been studying, or I've been doing Facebook apologetics for about 10 years now. I've been studying apologetics for 5 or 6 years. I'm almost entirely self-taught, but I just read voraciously. One of my primary studies is on the context of the Bible, the cultures, the origin of the documents, the general reliability of the documents. I've been getting into the early church fathers and the development of church tradition as of recently. But otherwise, I just read whatever I can, listen to whatever I can, and that's about it.
Okay. I see you have a lot of books behind you. Are those all like related to this type of topic, or is what kind
of? The ones that are in screen, not even remotely. So my library extends out the other side of the wall. All of these are Star Wars and Lord of the Rings and guides and different things. All of these are various kinds of nonfiction, memoirs, dictionaries. There's a small stack of the guides for dummies that you can see.
Okay.
I do have some theology books in the corner. In my physical library, I don't have as much theology and philosophy as I have other stuff. But then in my digital libraries, I have thousands of resources from all different time periods, traditions, denominations, religions.
And then what was it that got you into apologetics and made you want to be like a amateur apologist?
I was raised as a Christian. I stayed in there, and then throughout my late teen and early 20s, I encountered I first encountered my non-Christians, as it were. I was in Christian schools throughout all my life, and so I had my first encounters with the world. And I had 1 or 2 weeks of some classes and seminars that I attended that introduced me to apologetics, and then I met the people who don't believe in Christianity and realized or started learning about other views.
How old were you? How old were you in it?
This was late teens, early 20s.
Okay.
And just through growing with her, I've always been fascinated with truth and pursued truth. And as a result of that development, it led me into, I need to know whether what I believe actually is true, and pursue the truth. And then that's grown from simply reinforcing what I do believe by reading other Christian material into, I'm currently doing a multi-volume study on Islam. I've read a number of atheists, Buddhist apologetic material, and I'm expanding to verify that what I believe actually is true. I currently believe it is sincerely true and in a meaningful way. And thus I'm interested in defending it and demonstrating why it's true.
Okay. Out of curiosity, you made me think of this. You're studying Islam. Have you got into Sufism at all or no?
Not yet. I'm working my way through the Quran. I've read Muhammad Halim's book on understanding the Quran. I have a couple of the hadiths that I need to get through. I've read a couple like introduction books on Islam by a couple different people. I have a Islamic apologetic, or a couple of Islamic apologetics books that I'm working through. Sufism specifically, I haven't gotten to yet. I have read some on Buddhism, Wicca, New Age, Hinduism, couple different things, but I've got a lot planned for the future that I'll get to Sufism eventually.
Okay, cool. No, because that's the branch that I think that I would be most attracted to as a religion. Sufism is the one that I think appeals the most to me. And it's funny because I feel like when you talk, at least Muslim people that I've talked to, they will actually say that Sunnis, Shiites, and all these other ones like kind of have like the doctrine of Islam, but the Sufis have like the deeper truth. Like it's like where they're going to like the more esoteric, deeper truths of what is in Islam. And I've heard people who are not Sufis say that, and I was like, oh, that's interesting. Anyway,
it sounds like going into the Kabbalah with Judaism.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. It's Sufism is like going into the Kabbalah with Jew. That's a great example. Do you have any teachers that you prefer, like as far as like that will teach the type of doctrine that you believe in, as well as people who have good apologetic skills that you?
For teachers, I would start out with Mark Lanier. He's actually a lawyer out of Houston, but he's been teaching, or out of Houston, Texas, but teaching biblical literacy at his church for about 10 years.
Did you say Mark Lanier? Sorry, I didn't hear that.
Yeah, Mark Lanier, spelled Lanier. I'm going to put it in the chat for you.
Thank you.
And let me actually pull up his website, because the biggest reason why I like him is he doesn't push his, I mean, like, obviously he teaches what he thinks is true, but he doesn't push his religion as this is what you need to believe. Mm-hmm. He legitimately goes through and, okay, these are the texts that we have that indicate that, tell us about this. He's very open about, we can make these claims, we can't make these claims. Like when he's doing his classes, he's very much the lawyer. He's very much I can support these claims with evidence, I can't support these claims with evidence, and therefore, he separates them. The other thing I really like about him is all of his lessons are free. So he's got like 10 years worth of lectures on there. The handouts, the PowerPoints, the video, the audio, Old Testament survey, New Testament survey. He's got everything up there. It's incredible. So for teachers, I would start with him. For apologists, I would start with Greg Koukl and his book, Tactics. I consider that a must read, not just for Christians, but for everyone. Because the tactics he gives, they can be used when discussing politics. They can be used in family disputes. They can be used in business negotiations. They can be used anywhere. So I would start there. And then probably after that would be R.C. Sproul, because he gives a combination of apologetics and theology. I'm not Calvinist or Reformed myself, but I have a lot of respect for him and his work. His Crucial Questions series is free digitally, and I think is a great introduction to Christian doctrines on a number of areas.
Good. I'm writing these down. It's funny because I am familiar with Greg Koukl, or however you say his name. I have not read. I have not read Tactics, but I watched a lot of his YouTube videos. But I actually am a huge fan of R.C. Sproul. I have his Foundations DVD series, his Consequences of Ideas, Foundations, Consequences of Ideas. I have a bunch. I got like my books are like kind of like up on this wall up here. You can kind of see.
Yeah.
Like
I like that creativity there.
And then I have the ones that are like floating. You see, like they look like they're just floating on the wall. So
no, I like that.
So that's kind of like what I got going on there. But yeah, I have a lot of R.C. Sproul stuff. R.C. Sproul was the person when I first got involved with Christianity. I learned the most from him out of anybody, and he has a lot of stuff.
Yeah, he's an incredible teacher. He was very focused, very clear, very thorough, and
And
he was just a
he's
joy to
not
listen to.
boring. He's not
Yeah,
boring either. He actually
no,
gets
he's not.
excited.
Es- Especially, I love his meme, probably the most famous one. What's wrong with you people?
Yeah, like not getting excited about it. Yeah. No, I like
Yeah, he
Arceus
was
Pro.
great.
Cool, cool. Well, that gives me an idea of what where you're coming from with stuff. I'll give a little bit of background of where I'm coming from. I was not raised any particular faith. My mom was went to Catholic school, so it was like kind of Catholic, but we didn't really go to church growing up, except like maybe on Christmas and Easter and funerals and weddings, that type of thing. Um, and then around 21, 22, I converted to Christianity, and I went like freaking crazy. I like listened to probably a sermon every day at least.
Nice.
And I went out street preaching, evangelizing, um, just like super like immersed into Christian culture, listened to different teachers, and got acquainted with like the terrain itself.
Hmm.
Sometime along that, I just started to, there's a bunch of things that happen, like, but long short is like, I started to lose my faith in the institution as such, whereas I still feel like that Christianity has validity, but there's a lot of things that I think need to be changed
Hmm.
within the structure of the church itself. And I'm not in leadership, so I don't have the ability to make these things happen. So I kind of have to like distance myself and wait it out if it does happen, or like kind of cultivate my own thing in the meantime. And what I've decided to do is kind of try to cultivate that within my own circles with a number of different groups. I'm a part of a Peterson group
Okay.
that I lead. I lead a Peterson group where we have people who are involved, who are, you know, atheists, deists, Christian, Jewish, we have
Nice.
Muslim people sometimes, but they're all like come in there. So I lead that group. Um, and then also I have a group. Well, I'm I just got elected the other yesterday or the day before, Tuesday, whatever Tuesday was, as the senior warden of my local Freemason lodge. So I'm
Okay.
basically vice president of the lodge that's in my local area around here in Phoenix. And
Well,
so like,
congratulations.
thank you, thank you. And so like those are like groups that I'm forming myself, where I still am engaged within like the literature of different religions, kind of like studying like you're doing.
Hmm.
Not for apologetics purposes, but more of like we have meetings where we actually like somebody will do a presentation on like this particular religion. You can ask them questions, and they get pretty interesting. It's surprising how many people will show up sometimes for these. Um,
Yeah.
and so that's kind of like where I am myself. I would consider myself Christian in the cultural sense, because I don't think it's really easy to escape it being an American. Like you
Hmm.
have, like you are like, for
Yeah.
sure, there's like a big part of you that's influenced by Christian culture, even though you don't acknowledge it. And, but like, I guess more sectarian, I wouldn't say that, that I'm Christian in a sectarian way. Um, I don't believe that all religions are equally valid. I definitely would put Christianity up above that, but I don't think that Christianity has exclusivity as far as truth. You can find truth in other religions. I think, from my understanding, Christianity is probably the closest revelation of that, um, of the truth.
Okay.
Um, and, and I would describe myself as a progressive Christian, although not what typically is thought of when we say progressive Christian, because that is like has to do with like LGBT rights and all that stuff like that, which I'm more like this. I'm more like that. Uh, I guess in a nutshell is I think that Christianity is a little bit holding on to things that may be worth holding on to, but they have forgotten why they're willing to hold on to it. And
I would agree with that very much.
and then so I'm more of like the challenge is let's let's throw it away, or at least have the discussion of why we're keeping it. Because if no one can tell, then it's kind of like a superstitious reason we're holding on to these things.
Yeah.
So that's kind of like where I would describe myself as a progressive, is that we need to not just rely, I guess one way to put it is not rely upon the faith of our fathers or grandfathers, but actually digest the faith for ourselves and try to resurrect big, like Jordan Peterson says, is pull your father from the belly of the whale. Like, so like actually pull him out of there. Don't just like have this picture of him where you remember how great he was, and it's actually not,
Yeah.
it doesn't have any information that you can use today. It's just
Yeah.
like this thing with cobwebs. It's like you have the romanticism of your fathers or your grandfathers and stuff like that, but also like create your own thing, and then like try to conjure them back from the grave when is needed, which will be inevitable. So like it's kind of like I want that tension between moving forward and resurrecting, or I guess reviving the past itself, but refreshing yourself on why it is that case. And so that's kind of like my background with that.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense.
So, so getting into the discussion part now that we have that like background stuff, and maybe we'll both get better at like explaining. I don't know like how to do any of these steps, so
Yeah, we'll work it out as we go along.
we'll look at how's it going. So, so in the discussion, we got into the Great Commission. Let's see, I'm gonna leave that website up.
Yeah, the Great Commission, winning souls.
Yeah, winning souls. Yeah, and so the reason why I wanted to engage in you, because your response is what about the Great Commission is it struck me, because I did think it was a good objection, because obviously you're commanded to do the Great Commission. And what I was kind of going against is I have lost the desire to commit to the current day modern interpretation of what that what that looks like enacted in America.
Mm-hmm.
And so you saying that makes me think, okay, so am I throwing away the Great Commission itself by rejecting the way that it's done today? And that's kind of like what I wanted to have a discussion with you on, is like, perhaps I am throwing the Great Commission, but then it's like, I want to have a discussion on what are the parts that are necessary within this, that we believe, and what parts are kind of like just our modern day fabrications. And I guess I could start with one of them is I don't think that you necessarily have to be a person who does the sales pitch, so to speak, I guess, for a lack of a better term. And the reason why I feel strongly about that is, for one, I think in America, we've gotten too much marketing, sales pitchy, like type of MLM type of, like people are like doing an MLM.
The random friend from high school that's messaging you, how are you doing? I know
like,
what
hey,
you're calling for.
Exactly, you got the opportunity, and you're like, oh man, this type of thing. And I don't think that part is necessitated by the Bible, so that could be thrown away. Also, I don't really feel like, even if Christians are necessitated to do the pitch, I don't think that most of them are doing the pitch anyway. It's just like a symbolic position. Most Christians aren't doing it anyway. They leave that to the evangelists. So there's like a special office for that. But presumably all are supposed to participate in the Great Commission. Mm-hmm. So basically, so I guess what I want to ask you is, do you believe that Christians in large are participating in the Great Commission, or like, how do you see that they're failing that, or what do you?
I would largely say they're failing it, and I'm not saying that as strictly an external thing. I know I failed it in many ways, but I also know I think you're exactly right that there are different parts of the Great Commission, And we as a body of Christians are collectively called to it, but that doesn't mean that any given individual in any given situation must do all of every single one of these parts.
Mm.
And I'm not finding his quote, but Greg Kukul in Tactics, he actually addresses that specifically.
Mm.
He uses the analogy of gardening, of the, getting the conversion would be the harvest.
Mm.
That's where,
Mm-hmm.
you make the sales pitch per se for, do you want to accept Christ? And he argues that in order to have a harvest, you have to have a period of gardening. And most Christians are called actually to garden, and then others will come along and reap behind them out of what you've been gardening, what you've been, tilling the soil with. And unfortunately, I'm not finding the exact quote, but it's, I do highly recommend the book because he goes into that specifically. And I'll find it and send it to you later. So yeah, I agree. In most conversations, I don't think the right answer is to say, do you want to confess your sins and, ask Jesus into your heart? I don't think that's going to be the right solution in most conversations. But if it is objectively true that we are sinners, if it is objectively true that that God is the ultimate judge and will judge everyone for their sins, if it is objectively true that Jesus died for our sins and that through him we can be saved, then I think it is objectively true that we have an obligation to make sure people know that. Now, how that works out, I agree. There should be a rethinking on how that happens. I think the two main ways it happens today, one is some form of street evangelism, some form of active going up to people, this is what's true, you need to believe this. I think there's a time and a place for that. I don't think that itself is bad, but I don't think it's effective in most cases. The other more common one that I've seen is the seeker-friendly church, where you bring in everybody, or you invite the people who are lost into the church, you give some kind of a sermon, and then you do a typical altar call. My problem with that is most sermons these days in those types of churches don't actually preach the gospel. And it's difficult to say you need the gospel and do you want to accept the gospel if you haven't told them the gospel. It's like, yeah. Do you want to sign the paperwork and I'm not going to tell you what's on it? I'm like, okay, I just got the notification too.
Yeah, we removed it for you.
Okay, yeah, okay. I didn't know what the time limit was on the free version of Zoom.
Yeah,
I thought it was.
Well, they removed it, so we're good luck.
But no, Zoom. One of the things I have massive respect for with Zoom is during the starting phases of the quarantine, they actually gave free accounts to schools. All they had to do,
that's huge.
They signed up with or they had to get a school account with their school email address. The school had to verify it, and then once that was done, all the teachers could go in there, just register with the school domain, and then they're good to go.
That was really good. That's really good that they did that.
Yeah,
they win points.
Yes, so that was like, I have mad respect for Zoom for doing that and being so accommodating during the main phases of the quarantine.
Yeah, no, that's huge. Glad that.
Okay, well, I think I've talked for a while.
No,
do you have any questions on the things I've said?
Yeah, so here's actually, this is kind of like what I'm saying about rethinking is like, so with the seeker-friendly church, they're doing, this is another thing, this is like what I'm talking about with the Great Commission. Like, so a lot of times you go to those churches and they will do the tugging on the heartstrings thing, they'll play the music, and they'll try to soothe you. And like you said, you're end up committing to something which is something that's like a blind offer, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like you ever see those sales pitches where they're like, this is the one way to get like make money $10,000 a month with a push of a button, and you're like, well, how does it work? And you're like, it is amazing, and you're like, they'll like just never say, and then you sign up, and it's like you got scammed. And I
Yep.
think some people do sometimes feel like they're scammed. I actually watched, I was watching a TikTok, and this girl was saying like how Christians, a lot of Christians think that when they come to Christ, they think that he's going to take away all the storms. And it says that Christ will like keep things calm or give you peace in the midst of the
Yeah.
storm. And I was like, well, why do they think that Christ is going to take away all the storms? It's probably because that's the pitch that you're giving to them in these, in these churches where everything's going to be all good. And one of the things that's lost in Christian evangelism to me is the whole count the cost thing,
Yes.
where it's like, there really is no cost. And perhaps the cost isn't as bad as it was at one point when people were Christians were being killed or whatever. But at the same time, it's, I don't know. I don't know how to explain that. Do you get what I'm saying?
No, I get exactly what you mean because, and this is why I know the term lordship salvation is contested in a lot of circles, but this is why I kind of adhere to that, because in Romans, Paul says, if you believe in your heart that God, or if you confess with your mouth that Jesus is Lord and believe in your heart that God raised him from the dead, you will be saved. And I'm not taking that into be a literal, if you say these words, you get saved.
Yeah. Can you back up real quick and explain like it's like lordship salvation? I think I've heard of that at one point. Is that like as opposed to easy believism, or what's the
Kind of.
counterpart?
Well,
Can you explain those? Explain those like in this?
I'll explain it as best as I can. I haven't studied the back into it, but from what I've seen of the people who oppose lordship salvation, I think they actually would equate it to or as a form of easy believism, in the sense that you confess Jesus as Lord, and then it doesn't matter what you do after that.
Okay.
You're saved, and that's it. Which I think is a misinterpretation of what lordship salvation is. Because the very principle of I am confessing Jesus as Lord only means something if you are giving him the authority.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't mean that because I know some people are going to say this. I don't mean that in the sense that he didn't have the authority before,
Right.
but in the sense of we're submitting to his authority, we're recognizing it. And if you're submitting to his authority, that means you're going to start doing the things he says you need to do. Now, that doesn't mandate that you're going to be perfect. That doesn't mandate you're going to be sinless. But it means you start changing how you make decisions. You start changing what decisions you make. You start changing to match what Jesus has said. So I hold that it is opposed to easy believism, because easy believism is more, here's your get out of jail free card. You can do whatever you want, but at the end of the day, you're going to at least think you're going to get out of jail. But it doesn't require anything.
Yeah.
And I'm very glad you brought up the count the cost, because yeah, most people, most sermons that I've seen, especially modern sermons, say nothing about counting the cost. The whole thing is Jesus is going to take your load off of you, and he's going to give you peace, and he's going to give you happiness, and he's going to take care of things. And as Paris Reedhead would say, those are byproducts, not prime products. Those are something that you may get after as being a Christian, but you don't become a Christian to get those things.
Yeah.
Instead, we should come to Christ recognizing that we may, like you said, we may have it lucky today. We may have it easier than it was, 100 years ago or 1,000 years ago. But the fact is, being a Christian will cost us. And the rewards will be there in eternity at least, but it will cost us.
Yeah. Yeah. And I guess that's, yeah, it lends itself to me to people just giving lip service, I guess you could say. Like people are just saying, I'm a Christian, Christ, and this stuff, and then we just repeat it back to each other. And there's really no, and then if you do hit hard times, it's like, I feel like a lot of times in these situations, because that's not shared, that's kind of held back, then people don't want to share that this is rough. And so the person who they're going in expecting an easy time, there's no one there who's also been through this rite of passage where they had this rough time, and so they're just kind of
Yep.
like left on their own.
Are you familiar with Ray Comfort at all?
Yes, yeah.
Have you
Uh,
heard his parachute analogy?
I think I have.
Mm.
I know he does evangelism. He was doing it with
Mhm.
Kirk Cameron with Living Waters, and I
Yeah.
used to, when I started sharing, going out street, I had like some of his tracks, but I can't remember the parachute analogy specifically.
Okay. So he offered an analogy for salvation, and what it is the modern church today. Um, you're riding in an airplane. Stewardess comes up to you and says, "Would you like to wear this parachute? It'll improve your flight." And you say, "Okay." And you put the parachute on, and then you find out that it's uncomfortable sitting with the parachute on your back in the chair. And then the kids start getting, rowdy on, the other aisle, and the flight starts getting more uncomfortable, and, coffee gets spilled on you, and eventually you take the parachute off because it's just making things worse. Versus biblical Christianity that teaches that where the stewardess would come up and say, "Hey, we're going to be crashing. This parachute will save your life. You
Mhm.
need to put it on." At which point, it doesn't matter how uncomfortable it feels to wear it. It doesn't matter what anything else is that's going on. You hold on to that parachute with everything you have because you know that that's how you're going to live.
Yeah.
And that was, that was one of Ray Comfort's analogies. And it's too many sermons give this parachute is going to improve your
Mhm.
flight. This parachute is going to, feel comfortable. It's going to make you look cool. It's going to do whatever other promises they want to do. But they never say that we're going to crash and that you need it to survive.
Yeah.
And that's all the difference. But that is counting the cost.
So this is you made me think of this now too. This I'm going to switch gears a little bit with
Okay.
that. Here's something I want to see what you think about this with the evangelism thing, because you just sparked this in my head. Another reason that this is going to be a little bit more of a complicated one, but one of the things I do have against evangelism in concept is that I don't necessarily believe that Christianity should be a completely exoteric type of organization, that you should have some type of esoteric orders. And um, like the inner circle things. And when you fly the door open and just let anyone through your west gate, as we would say in Freemasonry, and it actually kind of has the ability to decrease the quality of people you have. And then when you really ramp up the pitch, then it's just people there to just receive. And in Masonry, it's like when you join, you're there to like kind of be a part of and contribute.
Mm-hmm.
Combine that with how Christianity is set up, like, to me, this is the reason why I I think I'm more for church being even reimagined, because the way church is set up is that it's like a theater. Like
Yeah.
you go in and you like, everybody just passively watches a pastor or like the people who are the leadership
Yeah.
doing something, and you're just like, it's like entertainment almost. It's like a
A lot of
show.
churches, yeah.
Yeah. And so like that type of thing, but like versus like in Masonry, we go in and a lot of people have a part in the whole everything that's being done, like they're voting, or a part of the ritual, like even sideline people have an important part. So we're all
Mhm.
partaking of this thing and being a crucial aspect to it, whereas it's more passive. And so um, I think with like the recruiting aspect, to have people sit there and watch the show, it's like, of course people are going to massively take in this show,
Mhm.
but then it creates a different type of product than a religious community that is, oh, we're like, let's say you do something like a piano restoration, is like, oh, here we got these kids grabbing these parts and we got this
Mhm.
person who's cleaning the key, and then it becomes
Yep.
like a unity project.
Yeah.
And that's kind of like something that I have like against the whole modern evangelicalism.
So I am very much in favor of questioning and challenging the institution of church, but I'm not in favor of um, eliminating it. I do agree. If all it is a show on Sundays, then one, you're absolutely right. That doesn't create Christians who are changed by being Christian. That creates people who show up on Sunday, spend an hour there watching a show, and then they leave, and there's nothing different in their life. I don't believe, though, that that is supposed to be all of what church is. Now, a lot of churches operate like that, so don't get me wrong. I'm not questioning that that's the impression given. But that should be one part of it. I think there is a place for where one person teaches and everybody listens. I think that's an appropriate thing to do. I also think it's very appropriate for people to get together in small groups and share their lives and share their homes and engage with each other. I think it's very appropriate that Christians should get together and do community service projects. I think it's very appropriate that Christians should get together and do in-depth studies. I think it's very appropriate that Christians should get together and go to mosques or temples or places of other religious services and talk with the people. I'm not saying evangelize there. I don't think that would be appropriate, but actually talk with them, get to know them, get to know their beliefs, get to know their, what they teach. But I think all of those are different pieces. And if a church or a Christian defines the practice of church as just that Sunday morning, then you're absolutely right. I think they've missed the boat entirely. But I don't think, like I said, I don't think it's wrong for that Sunday morning to happen. And in some churches, like I've been to some churches where like you have Sunday morning and then often you'll have like a Wednesday night youth group, and that's like all of church. And it's like,
yeah,
okay, I get the attempt, but no, it is supposed to be a community. It's very much supposed to be the people that are together.
Yeah.
And I also agree with you. I'm not familiar with the Freemasonry terms, but I agree with you. If the doors are open to everybody, anybody can come in. You have to accommodate the lowest denominator.
Yes. Yeah, that's gonna, yeah.
And I want to be clear, the church should be welcoming to everybody who wants to go. But the church should not be changing what they do in order to fit absolutely everybody that possibly goes in. Like I have a mosque near where I live, and I was lucky to be invited there for part of their Ramadan celebration. And it was a wonderful experience. I enjoyed being there. I got to see some of their prayers. I broke bread with them. But I went in and I was very open with them about this. I'm like, what do I need to do to be respectful here? Where do I need to take my shoes off? Where, are there places I should go, places I shouldn't go? Are there things I should and shouldn't do? I did not want them, even though I don't believe Islam is true, I didn't want them to change what they were doing because I was there. I was there as a guest. That's their service. Churches shouldn't be looking at the guests to define how do we teach to accommodate the guests.
Yeah.
They should be looking at, we need to teach what we believe, and we should account for the fact that we have a wide audience, but we can't change the essence of what we're teaching for that.
Yeah, no, I like that. So that made me think of two things. One, at the lodge, we have this sheet that breaks down the lodge courtesies. And when you become a member, it's like, this is where you can stand at this time, and this is how you leave and enter, and this and is like the people who are new ones, they have to adhere to those things.
Okay.
And these are strict rules of like, how do you salute the worshipful master when you're coming in or entering, where you're allowed to walk within it. Like every time you say the name of God, you have to like bow. So you say like, and so help me God, and you bow. You have to have some type of like gesture of
recognition of what you're saying,
of that. Like, so like, that's something like that we're like, this is like, these are the rules. So you can kind of bind the new person or the visitor even to this is when you stand, when you sit, when you know,
Yeah.
bow your head and everything like that. So I wonder, like, what you think about churches implementing something like that. And then also with, if you have new people, the problem, I guess, could be that if you have a democratic system, the new people can vote and then vote for things to be catered to them. But if
Yep.
you had some type of thing where you're a visitor, but when you become a full-fledged member, maybe even with dues, I don't know what people think about like doing that at churches, but have something, some barrier, and then you have voting power, but only the people who have been proven to have like dedication to what the church stands for have that voting power to kind of like influence the
Mhm.
core or something like that. What do you think about those type of ideas?
So for the second idea, that's actually most of the churches I've been to. Now, granted, I haven't been to a huge range in services, but most of the churches I've been to, um, their their voting laws require that you have to be a member in good standing with the church. Um, Now, what are the terms of being a member in good standing? I haven't tested that with with all the churches I've been to.
Mm-hmm.
But I know most of them, it's some form of like the eldership has to approve you. You have to be known by the church. You can't
Mm,
just, some random guy that just walked in off the street.
okay.
So I do think most of them have that. Now, having said that, one of the inadvertent ways to sneak past that is if um, you come in to be a leader in the church, usually through the worship service. And you come in, and I almost want to say, and I'm not trying to describe or to ascribe malicious intent to people, but almost that some people want to teach what they teach, but they have the type of human nature, the type of friendliness that people are just naturally drawn to them to trust
Mm-hmm.
them without actually questioning what they believe, what they don't believe.
Mm,
Um, and in my experience, most of those people tend to come in through the worship team or through
mm.
worship team media outreach, and then they end up in leadership position, and then they end up with extra voting power, as it were.
Huh.
So that's like, ironically, I see that as a bigger concern for a church that wants to hold to its beliefs than someone that's randomly off the street. Regarding the book of manners, for lack of a better word,
Yeah.
um, I don't think there's enough types of traditions in Christianity, unless you're in like Roman Catholicism or Eastern Orthodox, that are highly liturgical, where something like that would be necessary overall. Like I know with Islam, with mosques, there are areas where you need to take your shoes off, and if you're going to participate in the worship, then I think you have to do the washings that they have. Honestly, I don't know if they allow guests to participate in their prayer services or not, or just observe. But they have a couple things like that. Most of Christianity that I've seen outside of Catholicism, Eastern Orthodox, doesn't really have a whole lot of things like that. But I do think it would be good to have a kind of a welcome guide to, if you're not familiar with the idea of church, this is what you're going to see. We sing songs that are, these are the reasons we sing these songs. There's a person who's going to give a sermon during the day. We may stand, or if the church stands when they read the Bible, then, have something about, we do stand. This is why, this is why you're going to see this. I do think that would be good as a, not just an introduction to the, this is who we are, but an introduction to the, this is what you're going to experience if you're a guest on Sunday morning. Having said that, would it be possible for me to get a copy of the paper that you're talking about?
The lodge
I don't.
courtesies?
Yeah, I don't know how much within Freemasonry is you have to be a member versus not.
No, I can
I'm
send you.
curious.
No, you can. I can send that to you. The lodge courtesies. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I'm curious because one, I want to get past all of the website stuff that has all of this stuff about.
Yeah, all the
I'm like,
book. Yes.
there's so much stuff. I'm like, maybe it's true, maybe it's not true, but I
Yeah.
want to get to the source. But two, legitimately, I thoroughly enjoy understanding how other religions work, how they operate, or other, I don't want to say religion, I want to say belief system.
Yeah.
You know, other organizations, how they work, how they operate, how they view things. I sincerely enjoy learning about that.
Yeah, I could send you a copy of that so you can see that. You made, what was the thing you said before that? Before with the
I was talking about there's not enough of like that type of thing of when you say this, you need to respond with this.
yeah. But before the liturgy, because I want to mention the liturgy, and then
Before that was oh great, now my memory's broke. Voting.
oh yeah, voting. Yes. You were saying like that there is a way to circumvent. Oh yeah, there's a way to circumvent it by the worship team. Do you think so on the circumventing the voting? Do you think a premium is placed on the church for the worship service because these people are like necessitated to a certain degree the way church is organized, and musicianship is like somewhat rare? And do you think that like something instituting a new Christian type of worship, something like a drum circle, will help mitigate that emphasis? So like if you have something like a drum circle, people can participate, the high and the low, you know, in a drum circle, and that would like take away some of the exclusivity and power from the worship team, and that actually involve a greater group of people in order to worship God.
So on the idea of the drum circle itself, I think I'd actually need to see that in practice to really get what you're describing. Having said that, I think it's more that so many churches have turned their Sunday morning service into a performance.
Mm-hmm.
And in being a performance, the worship team is the star.
Yeah.
It's the worship team and having a hip pastor.
Yeah.
And if you have those two things, you have a good performance.
Yeah.
And that's how you get people to come back these days.
Yeah.
It's the same thing. I don't remember. I know I saw this firsthand, but I can't remember who it is that talks about it. But if you use pizza to get youth to youth group, you're going to have to keep providing pizza to keep them.
Yeah.
It's the what you use to attract someone is what you have to use to keep them.
Yeah.
So if you attract them with a massive performance on Sunday morning, you have to keep that in order to keep that crowd, and that means you have to keep high-end musicians.
Yeah.
On the other hand, if you attract them with truth, with sound teaching, then you're gonna have to keep them with that, which I think is a really good thing. Just a moment. I need to text my wife something real quick.
Yeah. Yeah, we're almost wrapping up here. We got like some more minutes, and then we'll let you go. So I guess like what I'm thinking about with the drum circles, this is conceptual. It doesn't have to be a drum circle, but conceptually, I know doing a drum circle, I've been a part of really big drum circles, and it is able to cast a wide net of participants who can do it. You know, like people can catch on much easier than they could play like the guitar or even hit certain notes.
Yeah.
And so like it's going to cast a wider net for participation. So any type of musicality that gets the wider net of participation, where you don't have to have the specialized people, and even singing songs that like, you know, like a lot of those like Indian Native American chants that you hear, like it doesn't take like crazy amount of like vocal skills, like I know who I am, like that, something like that, like we'll take it to where we don't have to like have this emphasis on the stars type of thing, which would kind of untether you from the power of being circumvented by the worship team, and even and just even being, because I feel like it's more about the community when you get the wider net of people involved in the worship itself.
Have you ever seen what you're talking about? Like
not in a church, but yeah, I have.
Okay. Well, are you talking like legit Native American practices?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can look up some of those videos then. I never would have imagined something like that, but I get what you're saying with that. And that would be interesting. I'd be worth looking into that. Or I think it would be worth looking into that and seeing how that would play out. Because I agree. I mean, granted, church services are your singing along with the worship team. But if we did get away from that worship team and got into us worshiping,
Yeah.
that would be a drastic change. And I think that if it's carried out right, I think that could have very good benefits for the church. I like that idea.
Cool.
Like I said, I have to look into it because I've never considered that before.
Oh, no,
But
that's why I wanted to have this conversation because
yeah.
because I have like ideas. Like I'm thinking like, it's hard for me to get like ground a lot of times in Facebook, make traction, and then also I think long form discussions like this will help the discussion within like especially people in like Peterson groups, stuff like that.
Well, and have you seen Wreck-It Ralph 2 yet?
No, I haven't.
Okay. It's worth watching, but there's a scene in there, never go to the comments section. And it's like, yeah, on Facebook, it is possible to have really good conversations on there, but it's difficult.
Wreck-It Ralph too.
Yeah, it's worth watching. If you haven't seen the first one, you do need to see the first one.
Okay.
But it's very worth it. It's a fun movie. But yeah, there's a scene in there that's, what are you doing? I'm looking at the comments. Oh, no. Never go to the comments section. But yeah, no, I like these conversations, and I would like to actually do this again sometime if you're open to it.
Yeah, I'm definitely.
Either continuing the same subject or continuing other subjects.
Yeah, I mean, I still have because here's what I'll write down because I do have the question on the liturgy part because I would like to talk to you about that and see what your views are on liturgy. And we could probably explore some of the stuff that we already talked about even more at another one. But yeah, like we've covered. I got notes on stuff that we talked about. So like if you we can set up another one of these and we'll talk more and I'll send over a copy of the Lodge Courtesies so you can see what that's like. And then I guess I want to give you a chance to ask me anything before we go here, if there's anything that you wanted to know.
Honestly, no questions come to mind, but this was a really good talk. I did really enjoy it. I really had no idea what to expect going in because I was like, I didn't really know where we stood off of that, the one conversation.
Yeah.
No,
I think it came out good.
No, it did. I like it. And yeah, I could see us keep going for a while, cover a number of different subjects. Yeah, we can talk about liturgy, talk about there's very few subjects that I don't get into these days.
Okay.
And honestly, prophecy is the biggest one. And the reason is human history has a wonderful tendency to get it wrong. I have enough other things to keep me busy with.
Yeah.
I'll get to prophecy eventually, but right now I'm just like,
where are you geographically? What state you in?
I'll message you that. I don't like saying,
okay, yeah.
No worries. It's
yeah.
But I'll talk to you about that offline.
Okay, cool. Yeah, that's good. I'll send that over to you. We'll set up we'll figure out off of the video call when we're gonna get together again. I'm pretty free these days, but yeah, it was a good conversation and I thank you for joining. Hopefully something comes out of this.
Thank you for having me. I'm looking forward to more.
All right. Take care, man.
You too.